The other day, I was talking to a friend, and he asked me a very good question that I think we should all ask ourselves a bit more often. And it's definitely a question that you should be asking yourself as a learner of the English language. He asked me, what do you need in order to take your business to the next level? Now, I had an answer ready for him because this is something that I think about pretty often. And shortly after that, I started thinking about how this question applies directly to people who are learning English, like you. Because a lot of people around the world complain about plateauing or stagnating once they reach an intermediate level. They reach that level and then they don't know how to go beyond that, how to get to a more advanced level. They still have trouble expressing themselves completely. Certain verb tenses and grammar rules still confuse them, or they have a very hard time understanding native speakers, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And all this is totally normal, I should say. It's just part of the process of learning to speak a foreign language. But what often happens is we get comfortable staying at an intermediate level because we know just enough to get by. We know just enough to make ourselves understood and do basic things like send emails, order food, or ask for directions. So we can survive, even if we don't thrive. And if you're not taking a structured course, then you're most likely not thinking about creating a learning path for yourself so that you can keep making consistent progress towards proficiency. And it's also likely that you don't have many people to practice with, which means you have no one to give you feedback on your linguistic abilities. This is really, I think, the major challenge of learning a language by yourself is not really having a path to follow. I think that's why courses are so attractive to a lot of people still, because it's like, at least I know there's a point A. I walk down this path and then I arrive at point B, mission accomplished. Even if the course doesn't teach you everything you need to know, it's easier to follow, which means there's a higher chance you're going to finish it. Because, of course, a school will take care of all those details for you. They've thought through the curriculum theoretically and developed some kind of plan so that you learn this and then that. And then the course increases in difficulty over time. They start explaining more advanced concepts and they know how to introduce these topics to you in a way that's digestible, theoretically, right? So people will take a course because they don't really know what to do. This is the first time they're learning a foreign language. So you tell me, teacher, what am I supposed to do? Which is totally understandable. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't afford a course or you don't want to go to a school and you just prefer to learn by yourself, the challenge then becomes, okay, well, how, like, what am I supposed to study right now? What am I supposed to focus on right now? So getting back to the original topic of this episode, getting back to what I was saying, the question, what are you missing, is the question I have for you today. That's the only question I'm going to ask you is what are you missing as an English learner? We really got to think about that question if you want to get to an advanced or proficient level, whatever you want to call it. If you just want to keep improving, I mean, you got to know the answer to that question. What are you missing? Because a lot of times, if you're learning by yourself, you'll probably just end up consuming a bunch of random stuff online, trying to find a teacher that you identify with, who has a style that you like, and enough information for you to consume to continue learning consistently. What else? You got to find people to talk to. You got to figure out what you need to know and what you don't really need to know. You got to have somebody to explain these things to you. It's just very challenging to get all of that quickly, and completely for free. So you just end up consuming a bunch of random stuff, which is better than nothing. But once you get to an intermediate level, you don't necessarily need to be watching grammar lessons or vocabulary videos. You need to be consuming content that's made for native speakers, or that at least exposes you to native speakers and maybe explains the more advanced things or cultural aspects of what's being said, like I try to do on the podcast, stuff like this. You don't really need formal lessons at that point. But at the same time, you can't just go around consuming random shit because you're probably not going to remember most of that anyway. So you're kind of wasting time depending on how you think about it. I got tongue tied there. Depending on how you think about it. You're really wasting time just consuming a bunch of information you're never going to remember. So Why keep doing that? But if you know what you're missing, if you know what's actually giving you problems right now, then you can address that directly. You can use your time much more efficiently to learn shit you actually need to know instead of just consuming a bunch of stuff and saying, I'm learning. I just think it's a more effective approach. Like, you need to know at all times what you should be doing if you want to actually get shit done, right? And this question is so funny because when my friend asked me this question, it made me think immediately about the TV show Shark Tank. I don't know if y'all have heard of this, but it's basically a reality TV show for investors and business people. So entrepreneurs who need a major investment so that they can grow their company or save their company, they come to these 5 or 6 investors and they do their pitch and they ask for an investment. And I remember one of the investors asked the entrepreneur, what are your top 3 priorities? Like, when you wake up tomorrow morning, what are the top 3 things on your mind that you need to get done to move your business forward? And the entrepreneur didn't have an answer for that question. She was like, I don't know. Which is literally the same thing as saying, I don't know what I should be doing to move my business forward. And so the investor said, well, it's for that reason alone, I can't really invest in this company because every company I've built or invested in had an entrepreneur who was very, very clear on what they needed to be doing with their time. They were very focused. And I took that little piece of wisdom with me and I want to pass it on to you. Not about life or business or nothing like that, just language, something much more manageable and attainable by most of us, all of us. I don't know. I like to say most of us because sometimes I wonder, are there people who are incapable of learning foreign languages? I would like to think that there aren't, but I obviously don't know. But anyway, um, lost my fucking train of thought. I was saying something like most of us can learn languages. I'm not talking about just business or life or some deeper shit. Just talking about language. That question, what are you missing? What do you need to be focused on right now? What do you need to be studying? What do you need help with? If you came across a native today that you could make conversation with multiple times a week, what would you need them to do in order to help you? Is it just talk to you, or is it explaining advanced concepts that have been confusing you lately? Is it certain phrasal verbs that gave you trouble? Do you need help with pronunciation? Is that the issue here? Are you just lacking confidence to speak, so you need somebody to let you speak freely and just correct your mistakes? Is it the present perfect? Is it prepositions? Like, what specifically is giving you the most trouble? I just think taking the time to consider that, writing it down if you need to. I actually recommend you write it down so you can see it in front of you. These are the things that are giving me the most trouble. So I'm going to spend my study time focusing on those things. And once I knock down those barriers, some new ones will pop up and I'll just repeat the process. But if you don't know the answer to that question, what are you missing or what specifically do you need help with? How is somebody going to help you? And even if you don't need help from other people, if you don't know what you need to get done, how are you going to get anything done? You know what I'm saying? So it's a very simple but important question. What are you missing right now? What is stopping you from taking your English to the next level? Or what's giving you the most difficulty? What's confusing you the most? Whatever it is, take time to think about it and then write it down. Write as much as you want in detail, you know? And then maybe start to ask yourself, okay, now that I know exactly what my challenge is, how am I going to overcome that challenge? What resources do I have at my disposal? Who can I ask questions about this topic or this material? Who can I practice with? Am I saying this right? Like, or how can I evaluate myself and track my progress? Stuff like this. Because it's not just knowing what needs to get done, it's actually attempting to get it done and then monitoring the results of your actions. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. So, yeah, it's just something I wanted to put on your brain today because I know a lot of people get stuck at this level and they have these confusions that they just kind of get comfortable living with. Like, they know certain things confuse them, but they never seek out the information or they never get somebody to explain things to them. They're not really practicing like they should. So they just live with this thing that just will forever be confusing, you know? And I just think it's a waste of time. That's all I'm saying. It's a waste of time to just be consuming a bunch of random shit and telling yourself that you're learning. You might pick up a few things here and there, but I'm just saying it would be a much better use of time if you clearly defined what's most important right now, what's challenging me right now, and then you knock down that barrier, right? Not just fucking spraying and praying in here, but be precise. Have a target so you can actually have something to aim at, you know? It's all about focus because we don't have that much time, right? Everybody seems to feel and be busier than ever, more stressed than ever. And you still got to study, you still got to practice, you still got to learn, you got to find a way to involve English in your life every day, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes. And so, yeah, I think a more direct, specific, personalized approach is really the key to making progress. So that's the question I got for you, my friend. What are you missing? What is giving you the most difficulty? What's confusing you the most? What are some things that you always wished that you had somebody to explain to you? Stuff like that. What's holding you back from reaching the next level? Because maybe it's not even related to the language itself. Maybe it's more psychological. You're just getting nervous and anxious, or you're insecure about things, or maybe it's the culture and you don't understand the behavior of the English speakers that you come across, and that's giving you difficulties. I don't know. But feel free to hit me up and let me know what your difficulties are. You can hit me up on Discord or shoot me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email or whatever. Let me know what difficulties y'all are having these days. What are you missing? It's really important you take time to think about that question. Write down the answers and then at least try to start formulating a plan on how you're going to, you know, get whatever you're missing. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here, my friend. That's all I got for you today. Just something to think about and maybe talk about with your friends or your teacher or whoever it may be. But this has been yet another episode of Real English Radio. I'm your host, Tony Kaizen, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.